Hello, my name is Sally Pinto, and I'm the Program Director for the Yonkers Newark Neighborhood Naturally Occurring Retirement Community. We serve seniors 60 plus in Northeast Yonkers. We are under the auspices of WJCS and the Yonkers Office for the Aging. We also have a resource specialist and a nurse on staff. We conduct virtual programming in partnership with the Yonkers Public Library on a daily basis. Enjoy the program.
Thanks, Sally. Good afternoon, everybody. Like I said, I'm Andrew Jiskin. I'm the intern here at Yonkers North. Happy to be here. So Mary and I are going to be leading the conversation today about social isolation and loneliness. As Z had mentioned before, it is a timely conversation right now during the holidays, and even I think post-COVID as well. We're still all reeling from that, but. So Mary and I Mary's going to give us some great information and go through any questions anyone has. The best way that we can do this is you can put the questions in the chat, either in the chat or directly to me, and then we can go through them with Mary, or we can hold questions to the end. So please, everyone, feel free to participate. Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out for this program. It really is an important and timely discussion because we are in a time when people are gathering and life has changed a lot in the last couple of years. But I especially think it's important to highlight that older ones can be considered a unique gift because they're like walking encyclopedias full of knowledge and experience. They're a wonderful blessing for us to have here amongst us, but we're kind of facing a dilemma now because we're quickly approaching a time when seniors are about to outnumber the young ones. And with that will come many changes and challenges if we don't take advantage of our seniors' many gifts that they offer us. So oftentimes in this time in their life, they're living longer as a result of medicine and just life in general. And they might find themselves living out their latter days without their loved ones, without friends of old, without longtime acquaintances. And therein lies another problem. We have a report from the National Academies of Science and Engineering and Medicine, and it mentions that greater than a third of adults aged 45 and older are experiencing feelings of loneliness, whereas nearly a fourth of adults aged 65 and older are viewed as socially isolated. Now, these circumstances of isolation and loneliness can lead to a risk of serious medical conditions. Some included are dementia, depression, and even unfortunately as great as suicide. However, you'll all be glad to know you didn't sign on to hear all the woes of the subjects, but we're going to try to discuss some helpful tips and practical suggestions for overcoming loneliness and social isolation. So we don't have any miraculous cure that we're going to discuss today, but we hope that you'll be able to benefit from some of the suggestions that we found in some resources.
Well, Mary, that is some great information. I have a question for you though. Isn't social isolation and loneliness one and the same, or are they? Or if they're different, how are they different?
Well, Andrew, that's a really good question. No, and not really. They're not the same. It has been implied though that loneliness is most often viewed as isolation accompanied by a longing for company. So we're alone, but we want to be with someone. And another take on loneliness is it can be likened to feeling alone regardless to the amount of social contact. So you could be feeling lonely and be in a room full of people. Therefore, some say loneliness without being socially isolated is kind of the norm. And that was a problem that we were having even before the pandemic. So you've probably heard it before, and I think you mentioned your dad quoted it to you, that you've heard that people can live in a crowd or be in a crowd of people and feel all alone. So it's kind of likened to that. But social isolation is different because it's a lack of social connection. So you're not around people, you're by yourself. And with this, it can be by choice or imposed. So if we choose to socially isolate, we could consider that solitude. Maybe we like to be by ourselves. We might even be in a position where we live in a crowded city, and due to the hustle bustle of life, trying to make things ends meet and take care of everyday necessities. Maybe we distrust strangers. Maybe we're afraid of being scammed. We got a lot of scam artists out there. Or we just want our privacy protected. We may choose to be socially distanced from others. And that's a choice. But then there's the social isolation that's imposed upon us. And that would be like this pandemic. We had no control over that. Or maybe we lost our loved ones. Maybe our family lived far away. Maybe our friends have passed away. Maybe we don't have good hearing. That's a big thing that people may not realize that causes social isolation. And so these circumstances are kind of out of our control, but they're all reasonable things to be concerned with. And because of that, we're going to discuss some ways to overcome some of those challenges. So either way, loneliness can happen to anyone, but it becomes a real problem when it persists. And that's what we're hoping we can do, is to try to break the cycle of the persistence of loneliness.
Mary, you mentioned about the health factor or the health risks that can play into this all. What are some of the health risks associated with loneliness and social isolation? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, like I mentioned already, 3 of the bigger ones are the dementia, the depression, and then possibly loss of life, self-inflicted. But although there are no hard and fast rules for precisely measuring the social isolation and loneliness, we see a lot of evidence pointing to that adults aged 50 and older are at higher risk due to these circumstances, and 50% are increased to have dementia. So that's half of the population that could end up with dementia simply from being forced into isolation or feeling lonely. And poor social relationships with is associated with 29% increase in heart disease. And we think that being isolated or not having good relationships can take its toll on the function of your heart, but it can. And then as far as stroke, 32% have an increased risk of a stroke from being lonely and isolated, as well as the increased risk of depression and anxiety, which could lead to hospitalization. So we have 68% with an increased risk of hospitalizations due to loneliness and social isolation, as well as 57% have an increased risk of going to the emergency room on a regular basis because they're lonely and isolated. So this data is significant.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. That some great information, and those numbers are large. So what can we do if we're experiencing social isolation and loneliness? And I think, but in the context of the holidays, no matter what holiday one celebrates this time of year, or to celebrate or not, there's a lot of, I think, there's gonna be a lot of expectations, and how do we navigate that?
Well, in general, people are social by nature. So we thrive on solid quality social relationships, whether it be our families or our friends. And this leads to a better health. The more you're in healthy relationships, the better your health. But ultimately, it's an individual's decision to decide how they want to address the feelings of isolation and loneliness. But we can start by making a careful and honest assessment as to why what's causing our loneliness. And it goes back to, is it self-imposed or is it imposed upon us? And these circumstances vary, but if we do make a good self-examination, we can also reach out to our healthcare providers to help us to figure out what we need. Do we need medication? Do we need to get involved more with our, social activities? Do we need to reach out more to our family, which we'll talk about those things a little bit later. But even with the NORC, we have the NORC nurse. So if you're here as a NORC client, or if you're not a NORC client, you can inquire a little bit more by talking to me, and I can direct you to some resources that's out there for you to get connected, because truly that's where we'll benefit, is by being connected. We also have organizations that we work with, like the AARP, Agency on Aging, your local library, or even your place of worship. All of these are organizations that could provide us kind of a safe haven for a suitable, stable, wholesome environment of association. And so, maybe we don't have family that live near, but if we go to a trusted source where we know people have relatable standards of life that we could feel comfortable with, that might be a way to alleviate some loneliness and social isolation. And YPL, which is the Yonkers Public Library website, they have tons of services and programs in person and on Zoom that they offer. So the aged population, there are things out there, but it will require a little more effort on their part, and maybe even getting outside the box. But sometimes the circumstances, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, is that they've lost cherished loved ones. And that's a big void. And sometimes all of these organizations put together could never fill that void. But even though there's no immediate solution to that, it can help you redirect your focus when you do get involved outside of just your household. And, that brings me to a question for you, because you had an experience that we talked about earlier when we were going over this information. Are you comfortable sharing that with us?
Oh yeah, the story of my mother. I definitely will share. So my father passed away when he was about. My parents were still together for a long time, around in his late 50s. So after his death, my mother, in the next couple of years, who had, we have a very big extended family with she's lots of children, lots of grandchildren. But what was just interesting in social environments, and I'll use the example of my niece's baptism, where she's surrounded by all of us and such a joyous celebration. She felt very uncomfortable, not only lonely, but also uncomfortable. I remember telling me at like after the ceremony, we had like a luncheon or whatnot, a party, and she said she felt like the loneliest person in the world, even though she was in a room surrounded by everyone, because my father wasn't there. And this is a good 2 or 3 years after he had passed, and that just was such a surprise to me, because you would have thought that with all of us there, that she would not be, it's like, how could you feel lonely in a room of 100 people that love you and know you, not strangers? And it took me a while to come around to understanding that. And and it's something she had to work through, as a lot of us do when we lose a loved one, or even a loss of a relationship. But I do remember that, and again, it makes me also think about my own life sometimes. Growing up, many of us live in this New York City metropolitan area, New York, Connecticut, Westchester, there's obviously Yonkers. There's tons of people everywhere. And even, for myself, I can always feel like, wow, I should be out doing something, even if I don't want to. And it makes me feel lonely because things are happening around me, especially during the holidays. And I know I need to balance out, as many of us do, no matter what age you are, okay, is it self-care? Well, I need some me time, or is there isolation, or is it loneliness? And and something that my father, once again, said to me when I was very young. He said, growing up in New York City, said, son, New York City can be the loneliest place in the world. You're standing in the middle of 8 million people, but it can make you feel lonely. Because again, it comes back to all those expectations, and the example again with my mother, not being there with her partner made that all that harder, and she felt isolated and alone and uncomfortable. Because again, that's something else we can talk about too. It's like, okay, what we can't force just run out to wherever and just sort of surrounded around people who are not comfortable, not having a good time. So I think again, that's something that people need to mitigate and to navigate. But that story always stuck with me. Unfortunately, again, not unique. Probably, I'm sure many people have stories that are similar to that. But what are, based on that story and some of the things that you've told us today, Mary, are there some practical tips or suggestions for us to navigate social isolation and loneliness? And can you give some examples of maybe of some clients or patients that you've worked with that had maybe some of these conversations with, or suggested these tips to?
Absolutely. Being that have been in healthcare as a nurse for over 20 years, I've dealt with this for a very long time. And it's really near and dear to my heart. You never want to see anyone feel alone and isolated. And I've seen how, especially in the wintertime, people in general, not just older people, but they deal with seasonal depression because of the change in the time, the darkness, the longer hours of darkness and different things of that nature. So it's always a good idea to go back to the basics, nurturing your relationships with the remaining loved ones. There was a time in my life when my brother passed, and it was really hard for my mother because she was so close to him. And I remember the doctor saying, but you still have a child left. Your husband is still alive. You got to focus on those that's still living. So, and I remember it took a while for her to get over things, which she never really got over, but to get healthy enough to realize that I do still have someone that loved me, so I can give them more love since my son is not here. So just being conscious of the fact that knowing someone cares about you, that can just strengthen your determination to face the day-to-day challenges. So if you've lost someone and you still have other family or even close friends that love you, thrive off of that. Let that be the thing that helps you to keep living and facing each day's challenge, knowing that someone's in your corner. And I mentioned earlier about being able to think outside the box. I have family that live, my most immediate family lives several states away. And I know you mentioned your family lives in different areas outside of New York.
Yeah, we're spread out.
Yeah. So what I found worked from our household was video conferencing. It started with me buying my mom an iPhone so that we could FaceTime. And it's one thing to talk on the phone, but now older people alike are pretty savvy, they're smart and they're involved. And so they want to be able to use modern technology. And there's lots of little classes and opportunities for them to learn if they don't know how to. But video conferencing is hugely important because, of course, there's no substitute for face-to-face human touch, but being able to see your loved ones on video and hear their voices in real time, that's encouraging. So there's a device that I bought my mother. It's called a View Click, and it's especially designed for seniors that are maybe forgetful or that are a little bit more challenged with devices. So what it does is I can hit a button and automatically appear on the screen. To see what's going on in my mom's house. We can talk face to face. It gives her an alert that I'm coming. So she knows to come to the video because your daughter's face is going to be there. Right. And so when it's not going, when I'm not on a video chat with her, it just shows family photos. So I have it like as a electronic photo album. And so I just picked all of her favorite pictures of different ones in the family. and I made like a little slideshow of it. So that plays all day, every day. And then whenever I call, that's on there. So there's a lot of things that the world they're trying to do to make it a little bit easier on people, because we are all so spread out, but we still need to keep our connections close. So I thought that was a really important thing as far as our family connections. But then there was
No, I think just on that, sorry to interrupt you, just on that point too, I think one good thing that might have come out of the pandemic and COVID, and as hard as it was, is that we all got an education on technology. You know, again, doesn't matter how old or young you are, and that is a great way to keep connected, and it's a great moment for all of us. I know it's not the same exact thing, but you know, just as like, you know, we're all here together today, and I'm grateful for that. But it is just to hear someone else's voice, and then to feel, you know, I know families that have a Zoom, that have family in different continents, and they have a Zoom Thanksgiving dinner or a holiday dinner together on Zoom, and it's I think we need to take advantage of those areas of technology that that we can to you know, to keep us a little bit more engaged.
Yeah, I appreciated that story that you mentioned about the families having their meals together on Zoom, because throughout the pandemic, I have friends in other countries that I had planned to go visit that was cut off because of travel restrictions, but we had Zoom lunches.
Everyone just has to make and cook themselves.
Yeah,
Other than that,
we had to be our own chef, but oh well, you know, you have a sandwich, you have a meal, but we were together. Right. So that's another option that we can do, and it might be different, totally different from anything we're used to, but it works.
Also, it's creative too, I think, because sometimes people, like, I don't know, a day like today, like I don't even want to go outside, and like, you know, sometimes people might feel comfort in their own home, might not be feeling well, whatnot, but at the same time can be, you know, kind of have the best of both worlds. Again, it's not the same, but it's you know, something that we might have not had a couple of years ago.
There's a question: can you cook over Zoom together? Actually, you can.
Oh wow!
I went to, actually I hosted a cooking show where I contacted friends in different areas. I had a friend from Texas, a friend from Hawaii, some friends here, and it was nice. It was nice that we had the opportunity to do 5 ingredients or less, and it was a lot of fun. You know, to make something together.
I see the comment there too. What wasn't a question, but it's a good comment, and it's great that you do with your family all the time. That's awesome. That you get that something you guys can share.
Yeah. So, but this kind of takes me to my second point, because cultivating healthy friendships with others is really valuable, and it benefits our mental and emotional health when you have good friendships as well. And I thought about something that sometimes we get comfortable with those just in our peer group.
Right.
But as a kid growing up, and even now in my 50s, some of my best friends have always been at least 2 decades older than me. And I've learned so much from them. They've been patiently and excitedly able to teach me all the things that they know. And many times, if I pay attention, I can actually benefit from the things that they've taught me. So I thought that was a really important thing. Use that as a blessing, not just for yourself, but to others, to share with them life's experiences. It'll definitely be a blessing in difficult times, when you can lean on somebody, and not just somebody in your own age group. And this might mean a little bit of work on your part, but there was a program we were just with the Thanksgiving holiday just passed. There was at Crestwood Library, they offered the kids, they had some kids put together some cards for the seniors, and I thought that was so nice, that they were bringing together the young ones to do something for the older ones. And it would be nice in the future if there was an opportunity for them to physically come together and work on
Yeah.
projects. But those are just things that you can think about doing, is making friendships. But even if it's outside your age group, that would be a really good thing. And staying physically active. Nort was in partner with the library for the walking. They did a walking program every week. Now, not all seniors are physically able to get out and walk, but we do have the exercises and the yoga classes during the week. Coach Elaine,
Right.
she does a really modest exercise program where if you were older, you could do it. You could even modify it and do it from your chair. But just kind of stimulating yourself physically, that helps with good mental health. It releases natural endorphins. And being able to get out is good if you could come in person and do the walking classes or even do stuff at the library, because there's, like, I can't say it enough, there's no substitute for human touch. It's such a powerful, it's a powerful gift to have human interaction. We were designed that way. So if you do decide to get out, though, you have to think about whether or not you've had your flu shot and your COVID back booster, just because these things are still rampant. So we don't want to forget to be mindful of our mask and keeping our hands clean. I just have to throw that in, because even though I'm encouraging interaction in person, we still are in
We want to be smart and careful about it. No, for sure. And it's good to put that in there.
Yeah,
I
I
think
just have to
it's kind of the new normal for all of us. There was a great comment in the chat too about one of the walking programs in person, Yonkers on the Move. Thank you for sharing that. And it's a great opportunity to get some exercise and meet some new friends. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so I mean, these are all just really practical, basic things. There's no rabbit out of the hat surprise information that I had. It's just, taking advantage of what you have available to you. One other thing is just maintaining a positive attitude, that can help put anxieties and sadness at bay. A lot of the way we feel starts with what we think about. So if we put positive things in our mind, read information that's encouraging, maybe Bible passages, or if you're not a person that believes in it, read the Bible, some spiritual aspect that you believe in that can bring good emotions to you, things that can make you feel inspired to do better. Try to bring those type of things into your mind and heart, because what you bring in your mind will settle into your heart, and it's the way you will speak and it's the way you'll feel. Being able to volunteer your time to help others is a hugely important thing. The scripture says there's more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. So all these things are just things we've probably heard all our life, that when we're feeling down and alone, it's easy to think about only ourselves and what we're feeling. And if we could just kind of get out of that task, and sometimes, we might find ourselves in isolating type recreation, which is binge TV watching, watch TV all day. We don't get involved with anybody, and it's kind of hard to resist sometimes, especially if you like the program. But it's still, we should kind of push ourselves to, get involved with others and listen to good music, positive music, something that, one of our old favorite songs, sometimes that'll cheer up our mood. Another thing is just being thankful. If you start to feel yourself feeling lonely and isolated, try to think of something that makes you feel good on that day. Count your blessings each day. It's kind of another thing. And breaking down tasks. because sometimes we can get overwhelmed if we think about all that's wrong, all that we have to deal with. If we can just take it smaller portions, a little bit.
I'll ask you a question, Mary, about, you talked a little bit about physical activity. We know that's super important, and exercise
Mhm.
to the varying degrees that one can do it. What about diet, especially this time of year too?
Mhm.
This might lead on and off of, obviously sometimes we can eat comfort food, but this isn't always the greatest thing in the world to eat. But this time of year too, what are some diet and food tips that you can mention, even just to get through the holidays?
Well, that's interesting because we just had a webinar about healthy eating during this time. And, you know, there's no substitute for comfort foods. I've tried to eat healthy versions of some comfort foods, and some work and some just don't. But it's just moderation. I mean, and
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a very good point.
And outside of that is also limiting processed food. We live in a country where everything is ultra processed. And now
Right.
that's a new term you'll see all the time. It's ultra processed.
Ultra.
And so, limiting ultra processed foods, baked goods, sweets, and just junk food like that, it really contributes to it drags on us. And so it's one thing if you like sweets, make them at home, make a batch. One of the things I like to do, I don't like store-bought baked goods, but I'll make a batch of cookies, roll them up and put them in the freezer.
You can control what you put in it, right?
Control what's in it, and I can control how much of it I eat, because if I just cut off one or two and make 2 cookies, I'm good. So you just have to find ways to still satisfy what you like, and but still be healthy while you're at it. And during the holidays, if you choose to eat that way, one other thing is go for a walk afterwards. If you're gonna eat a heavy meal, even just a 2-minute walk has been proven to make a difference with digestion and keeping the blood flow going. And for me, sometimes I may not go outside and walk, but you can walk in place for 2 minutes. Sometimes I'll do that after I eat, or I have a elliptical machine. I can get on that for 2 minutes. But just doing some kind of movement and not just sitting right after you eat helps with the digestive process. And of course, a little bit of exercise really does release those natural endorphins that make you feel better, And then, limiting the alcohol intake too around this time.
Sure, for various reasons, but right, exactly. There's some great comments in the chat. One is about volunteering, which is a great suggestion. There's so many opportunities to volunteer. I feel like this year more than ever. And then a program called, if I'm saying this right, Pre-Cubs, which is a Pre-Cubs of Love, a program that connects people together to crochet or knit blankets for premature babies. That's awesome. And meditations, affirmations, very important. I love meditation myself. I think that's a great way to start or end your day, or even take a pause in the middle of the day. Sally also has a great comment about the animatronic pets. What those are that we have dogs. I wish I had them with me. I will be doing a video soon for everybody. I kind of have a how-to. Those are dog, cats, and birds from the Yonkers, Newark via New York Office of the Aging. And there's a great way to help seniors in isolations. Basically what they are is they're pets that are battery operated, and they react to movements and sounds. So if we're going to have a cat that will looks very real, will purr, will make movements, so it feels like, I'm a pet lover myself. I'm a dog and a cat guy, and I know those are, if you can't have a pet, or if you can't take care of a pet, that happens very often, especially living in this area. It's a great way to do that. So be on the lookout for that. It's called animatronic pets, and they're great items. We also have it's a little bird. It's really cute. I have mine. I hear him in the morning because again, it reacts to sound, light, and movement. again, to some comments here, that we do, if everyone goes to either the Yonkers Newark website or the YPL events website, almost every morning we have a 9 a.m. Either health and fitness or 9 a.m. meditation fitness classes that are on Zoom, and it's your own level of participation. But I know those are great ways. It's a great way to start your day, and I love to see how many of the members and clients get on there. Yes, thank you, Z. Also on Saturdays, just to get the blood going, and we have some excellent coaches and facilitators on there that are very patient, and because I know that can be intimidating, but the meditation part of it is also a great journey you can go through, especially again this time of year. If you can start your day focused on a particular concept, solution, product, kind of putting something out there and then into the universe, and then combining it with some movement, with some exercise.
Sounds good. Well, this has all been really exciting, excellent information. Thank you for all of the feedback and comments in the chat that made for a wonderful, lively discussion. And thankfully this is recorded so that if you forget something, you can always go back and take a look at this video. Also, the information I got was from the CDC website. They had a really nice web page on better health, and it touched on so many different topics. There would have never been enough time to cover all of the subjects that's on that website. Also, I got some information from jw.org as well on loneliness and isolation. So I really spanned out my research to encompass just something for everyone.
Thank you, Mary. I have one other question. Again, anyone also wants to ask a question, you can unmute yourself. You can put a question in the chat. Please feel free to speak, to share, whatnot. My last question to you, Mary, is just on the note of health and safety. Where can seniors, where can anyone go to get a flu shot or a COVID vaccine shot? And with the COVID vaccine shot, what specifically? There's a lot of different vaccines out there. What should they be asking for?
Well, at this point, first of all, to find out where you can go, you can always go to the cdc.gov website, and they'll put in your zip code, and it'll tell you who has what near you. Or if you're just feeling like, hey, I live right up the street from the CVS or the Walgreens or the Rite Aid, all those places have, the vaccines, whether the flu shot or the COVID vaccine available.
So most major drugstores would have it, right? CVS,
Yeah.
Walgreens.
So,
Right?
but most of the time, I know earlier on they wanted a appointment for those places. So it's good to call ahead or go online. If you're not a savvy internet type person, just call, say, do you have it available and can I make an appointment? And they'll walk you through what you need to do. But the CDC website is always a good place to go and get information like that. Now, as far as who should get what, now is a good time to get the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is only really at its peak of effectiveness between 4 to 6 months. And the flu season usually lasts at least into March, April. So now is probably an optimal time to get it if you haven't gotten it already for the flu shot. As far as the COVID bivalent, that's
bivalent. That's the new.
That's the newest COVID bivalent booster. In order to get that, you need to have finished an original series of either Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. It doesn't require that you've had to have another booster prior. The other boosters aren't even available anymore. They also, I just see a notice about them having the high definition, the high dose flu vaccine. That's for 65 and older.
5 and older. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
So,
thanks, Sue. That's a great point.
So you can, and they should offer that. When you go in, you have to fill out paperwork that you put your birth date in, and it should automatically clue that you're qualified for that one. But in any case, you can always ask.
And it's safe to go down and get, if somebody wanted to go get the flu shot and the vaccine at the same time, is that okay as well?
It's not said that it's not okay, but each individual have to discern what's best for them, because it can make you a little more fatigued getting them both together. I've seen more evidence that have affected those younger than 65, more so than older. So it would just be up to that person and how they dealt with the vaccine or the flu shot in the past. If you had symptoms of cold, then you wouldn't get the flu from the flu vaccine, but you can get cold-like symptoms. So if you've had cold-like symptoms, maybe you don't want to do them both at the same time, but there's no law against it.
That's a great, the reason I bring that all up too is just, I know in a time of trying to beat isolation and be social in the holidays, everyone still is worried about, a lot of chatter out there about, getting vaccinated. I just wanted to make sure everyone was educated on where they can go, but it seems pretty user friendly.
It really is. And one other thing though too is the RSV is out there as well. And I know we talk a lot about the pediatric population being at the greater risk, and they are, and it's pretty common amongst peds, but the seniors can get it as well. And it's a little harder on them, so it'd be good for them still to try to be mindful that keeping a mask available is still a good idea, keeping your hands cleaned. And, if you're in a public environment like the store or some other place, may not be a bad idea just to throw your mask on, especially if you kind of can observe in your environment that maybe people are coughing or, sneezing or what have you. We're not all wearing masks anymore. So we are at higher risk of getting sick now. So just things to keep.
Being someone that takes the buses and subways a lot, I've returned. I don't know if I'll ever not return. It's just better to be safe than sorry. But those are good. Again, I didn't want to make this a big conversation about vaccinations a lot, but I think it's important for everyone to know, to take that extra step if you want to, that it's available for everybody. But that's great. That's great, Mary. Again, if anyone has any comments or wants to ask a question, please feel free. You can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. But Mary's provided us with a ton of great information and statistics, and I thank her for all that. And thank you for answering all my questions, because I think this and grateful for everyone that has been here. Just coming together here and being together for an hour makes a big difference. Or you can raise your hand as well. As he has her hand raised, unmute.
Hi there, everybody. Yes, I wanted to be respectful and raise my hand. I wanted to say that letter writing is really great. I know that sometimes we've done letter writing projects at the library and we've been doing pen pal projects, and that's a lot of fun because you can match up people of varying ages. It does, you don't have to be matched up with a teen to a teen. It could be a teenager writing to a senior writing to an elementary school person, or senior to senior even. And it's been really rewarding to go to the old fashioned route. I know that we're all into technology and we're on Zoom today, but it's really nice to receive a handwritten note. And I know that the NORC has been doing a lot of art programs, and we've been doing some card making programs throughout the years, like on different occasions. So I really feel that is really nice. Like Mary said, doing the homemade cookies, and there's nothing like a homemade cookie. There's nothing like a homemade card or a handwritten card, even if it is a store-bought card. But if you write a message inside, it's just so nice to receive that. So I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Z. That's something that we in our Christian organization had to do a lot over the last couple of years, to reach out to different ones. And it's amazing because everything is so electronically centered. The only time you get mail is usually maybe a bill, or on maybe these times of years when somebody's sending a holiday card or something like that. But just to go to your mail and get a handwritten letter has
not a bill or a or a
Yeah.
card from Verizon. No, that is right. Z, thank you. That is a good point. Sometimes it's cathartic too. Also, just writing something, even Christmas or holiday cards, even birthday cards. It seems like it's everything so automatic that you don't even get a signature or a smiley face or anything. So that is a definite. That is a good point.
I just thought of just this one last point. I know this was designed for older adults, but even as older adults, be mindful of maybe your grandkids or different ones, because young ones are really struggling with loneliness and isolation too. Being taken away from their schoolmates for 2 years was really daunting for them. And this is how they grow up, and they identify who they are and come into their personality with these interactions, and they learn how to become, healthy adults by learning how to work through social ideologies with their peers, and then having that taken away. Now they're kind of all struggling to get back to some sense of normalcy. So you could be a blessing to even, your own grandkids or children in your family by spending a little more time with them, making them realize how valuable they are, even as young people. So I did talk a lot about how valuable older ones are, but the young ones are super valuable too, and they're a gift and a blessing because they grew up to become older people at some point. So it's really an interchange of encouragement when one group can reach out to another group. And I saw a comment about group texting and families. I have a lot of groups that I text in, and that's nice to kind of just let somebody know that they're being thought of, that they're not forgotten. A little bit of kindness goes a long way.
The point about cross-generational socializing, yeah, it is great. I know even for myself, I'm on a morning gratitude list with family members that ranges from a 14-year-old to someone else. And yes, phone calls are great too. I'm old-fashioned that way as well. But to get that cross-generational socialization, I think we all can learn from each other, no matter how old or young we are, because we all will have or will walk in each other's shoes someday. So.
Okay, that's about it for me. That does it. There's no more questions. Turn this over to Sally. I guess we'll end
Yes.
the program here.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you so much, Andrew. Great information there on how to tackle isolation and loneliness, and to understand that it's not just physically being alone, but also you can be in a crowd of thousands or millions, as Andrew had said. So we want to thank the Yonkers Public Library. We want to thank the Yonkers Office for the Aging and WJCS for supporting the Yonkers North. And we want to thank our resource specialist, Alexa Smith, and obviously our nurse, Mary Jenkins. Again, we did put our information in the chat for the Yonkers North. And thank you to Andrew, our intern. We look forward to a new year of 2023. 2022 is quickly coming to a close. We look forward to a great new year. And I will ask Z if she has any closing comments.
Yes, thank you again. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes things are really difficult to talk about in forums like this, and also the replays. A lot of people won't come on live, but they'll watch the replay. So that's really valuable too. And, we really appreciate both of you taking the time, and Sally taking the time to prepare for this and to organize this and to offer this. And for our community organizations to working together is really important. And also for our public, thank you for always showing up and for making comments. A lot of the comments today were very insightful, and they were from participants, and they merged well together, and together is better. So I do want to thank the NORC, the Office for the Aging, and the rest of my library staff as well for always supporting.
All right, so hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day. And we look,
Sally, I just wanted to just remind any of the participants here today that if they know of someone that may want one of the animatronics, to please just reach out to the NORC or to the Yonkers Library with Z or Will Library, whichever one you're closest to, because they are readily available for, you know, anyone that might be interested in having one of the cats, dogs, or birds.
Yes, we have one on display. Tomorrow is our holiday breakfast for those of you who are close and who are free and who are able to come. I have baggies for those of you who don't want to eat but want to feast on the pleasure of the company. So you can use tongs and put your food in and eat elsewhere, but just enjoy time together as well. And we're asking for donations for the Yonkers Animal Shelter, and we have one of the pets out of the box in the display, so you can come and check it out for yourself live. That'll be good. All right. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Z. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all soon.
Hi, everyone. This is Z from Yonkers Public Library. Thanks so much to Sally Pinto and Alexis from NORC. Thank you to our community partners, WJCS, the City of Yonkers Office for the Aging, Friends of Crestwood Library, and Yonkers Public Library for making this phenomenal partnership. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our wellness community. Be well, stay well.